on this All Saints edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.
I think that there were areas in which he did look good. I think that there were areas in which you look for growth.
And it's impossible not to question Kellen Moore and his aptitude as a motivator.
I feel like I'm not going to understand if it's a good move or a bad move until we see what Baylor can do.
Them having 4 explosive plays in a game, it was like,
Hey, watch out now. Watch out now. Watch out now.
Welcome into another Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. This time a post-NFL trade deadline edition. We are very appreciative of you being here for the show, which is a collaboration between the Locked On Podcast Network and WWL TV. I am Ross Jackson. This, the ever wonderful Doug Mouton. Thanks for being here with us tonight.
Said no one ever.
Said me just now.
Yeah, good point. I want to jump right into Saints. Are you worried, not at the losses, but this is 2 straight weeks, and you might be able to count the Bears game too. 3 straight weeks, but 2 for sure, of non-competitive football. Not that you're losing. None of us expected this team to win many. And it doesn't matter if you win 3 or 5 or whatever. That doesn't matter. We know they're not going to the playoffs, but non-competitive is tough to take.
Yeah, big time. And I think you're right. It's not that they're losing, it's how they're losing in certain situations. And they found all these really creative ways to lose in different ways, right? First time it was a blowout against Seattle, or well, it wasn't their first loss, but in one of their earlier losses, it was a blowout in Seattle thanks to special teams. Then we've seen an inability to be able to move the football consistently on offense, and then we've seen some defensive meltdowns like we saw up against the Rams this past week as the team now enters that 1-8 worst start since the 80s for this organization. And so, I think I am. I would say that I'm very concerned about not just the fact that they are losing, as you mentioned, we expected that. It's the nature of how they're coming about these losses that's been so concerning so far.
And it's impossible not to question Kellen Moore. His aptitude as a motivator.
Yeah, sure. I look, it's his first year ever as a head coach. This is his first job as a head coach, and this is the first time that he's had to be the one to lead a team. And we know he's not the most fiery guy. We know that he's not the guy that's like the big rah-rah. We talked about that on this show before, about how maybe it's about the authenticity, maybe it's about the respect and wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But outside of that, I think you're getting closer and closer to needing to see a little bit of that.
But look, the one thing I will say is I don't believe on judging someone on an incomplete. And let's see. Look, first 9 games of the season, you played 6 teams that are currently sitting in a playoff spot. Last 8 games of the season, you play 1. You're playing teams that are on your level. Let's see how you do. Let's see these next 8. But I think it's fair to say questions are coming up about the motivational.
It's very fair to ask the question and then wait to see what the answer
is.
Right? And I think that's what we're waiting
Here's what we're watching now over the rest of this season. All right, let's show you what's coming up on the menu on this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, and we teased it a little bit. We are, going to be talking Saints. This is a full Saints show, and it is about Kellen Moore. Look, that's the mood of the whole team. Last week in LA. We're also going to be talking about Tyler Shough and his debut, the good and the bad and the mediocre and all of the in-between, and then the small plays.
Yeah, then we're going to get to some of this trade deadline news. The New Orleans Saints send Rashid Shaheed to the Seattle Seahawks, get a couple of picks in return. We'll talk about whether or not that return was enough. And then the Saints also continuing their West Coast deals for for players on expiring contracts. On top of that, Trevor Penning sent to the Los Angeles Chargers for a menial return, I think I'll call it. We'll dive into all of those details here in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And then our dinner guest tonight, Catherine Terrell, who might be our single most popular.
She holds the record. She's got to hold the record.
She holds the record for most appearances. We love Kat. She does a great job covering the Saints. She's fun to have on the show. And Seth is ridiculous, and we love having Seth on. And for our last call tonight, I'm making it, and Seth, we're going to give him some grief, is not the biggest coffee person, and Catherine is. So that's why I'm leaning into
and Doug is, and Ross is.
The 3 of us are. So Seth is going to have another version of an espresso martini. This one's called a Lotus Espresso. I made this one last Christmas and the Christmas before that for our big Mouton family Christmas celebration. Nice. It's extreme. I think I might like the Carajillo better, which is the one I made a couple of weeks ago. But this one's awful good. And this one's super coffee forward, which is going to drive Seth nuts in a comical way. All right, this week the Saints go to Carolina because they do. Panthers shockingly 5-4. They're better than I wanted to admit. Rico Dowdle has been a great cheap free agent signing. He's also on both of my fantasy football teams.
Good for you.
I love the alternative Panther logo.
Big fan of that logo.
And it shows up well on the black background. The game noon, Sunday, and the Panthers, who've been the worst team in the NFL for the last however many years, 6 or 7 years, 5.5-point favorites over your New Orleans Saints. And that's where we start. All right, let's go back to Tyler Shough. And we're going to bring this on with Kat and Seth. But your initial impressions, good, bad, mediocre, in between?
I would say incomplete, honestly. I think that you only had 40 offensive plays as a whole to run, which was one of the lowest in franchise history.
Oh, for sure.
It was tied for the second fewest plays run by an offense here in 2025.
Yeah.
And they only had 16 minutes of time of possession. It was the 13th least in NFL history.
In college games, 40 plays is common in a half.
Right, 100%. And honestly, the Saints were almost doubled up on offensive plays over on the other side because of that deficit. And so it's hard to say whether or not Tyler Shough looked good or didn't. I think that there were areas in which he did look good. I think that there were areas in which you look for growth. He's always been a guy that's, in his draft evaluation coming in, how would he be under pressure? How would he be under pressure? How would he be under pressure was always a big question. And he had some ups under pressure, that stepping out of the pocket, getting up, and then delivering the ball for 27 yards to Chris Olave, a thing of beauty. Or there were other times where he panicked under pressure. And so I think that that's got to be the thing that we're kind of watching over the course. But I haven't felt like I can make a determination on him after the first game.
We were watching the game, Seth and I were watching the game in the sports office because Ricardo made the trip to this game and was at the LA game. So Seth and I were watching it, and in the fourth quarter, Seth asked me, what do you think about Shough? And we agreed, we were looking at it and I said, he's not overwhelmed by the stage. He seemed calm, and I think that's a good starting point.
100%.
I thought, look, the Rams are the best defense he's going to play the rest of the year. Third in the NFL in sacks. I think the Panthers are 26th. So he should get a decrease in pressure this coming week, and let's see how the growth happens. But I thought he looked. I mean, look, the one interception was on fourth down. I don't have a big problem with that. I thought it was a solid, not great, but not a disaster debut.
You would have known if it was a disaster, right? We wouldn't be asking the question. We'd be coming up here saying, what do the Saints do now?
The defense was the disaster.
Right. And so I think that for Tyler, he needed to go out there and show that he could at least prove that he could hang with some of the NFL elite. I think he did that up against the Rams. And he had some really nice moves. He was great when he was kept clean as well. Completed the majority of his passes in those situations, was able to pick apart the defense, found a lot more of those intermediate area throws.
20-plus pass plays.
Right. And remember, we were trying to figure out when the Saints would get their third of the season at one point.
And those weren't catch and runs. He actually threw those downfield.
Right. And so I think that those things are good. Even the touchdown to Juwan Johnson, you got to put that ball in the right place to give him the opportunity to be able to go and fight for the yards after catch.
Correct.
He did. And so I think that everything down to ball location, decision making, all of those things, the things that we can gauge, regardless of the talent around him or the talent across from him, checked a lot of boxes.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's see him play like a whole football game as opposed to this, which was probably 2.5 quarters worth of plays.
Crazy. Wild.
Crazy. All right, you know what time it is? Let's bring in Kat and Seth. And we're back with our guests here on the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. That, of course, Seth Lewis from WWL TV, and this, Catherine Terrell from ESPN.
Thank you both for being here with us. We want to take a look at the trade deadline moves that have happened. So we saw that Rashid Shaheed was traded for a 4th and a 5th in 2026, and Trevor Penning was traded for a 2027 6th-round pick. We're going to come back to that one. I want to start off with the Rashid Shaheed deal. Kat, can you tell us a little bit about maybe your initial reaction to that move and kind of what the return was for the young wide receiver?
I think it's interesting because it's kind of a TBD, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not going to understand if it's a good move or a bad move until we see what Vele can do. Because right now it almost seems like they swapped Shaheed for Vele, who has only played, I think, 144 snaps to Shaheed's 400-plus snaps.
Yeah.
And so it kind of makes me think, okay, if you were thinking about trading Shaheed, why didn't you play Vele more? And I understand that can be tough while you're trying to manage things. You don't know that any trade is guaranteed. But there are a few head-scratching things. However, I do think if they felt whatever he wanted, they were not going to re-sign him and that he wasn't going to fit in their offense, then ultimately it was a good move for the future, and they had to make those future moves at some point.
Yeah. You agree?
I wonder if the Saints knew at the beginning of the season which wide receiver they were going to trade. You know what I mean? Like, were they?
You don't think it came down to the market?
Well, I think it maybe came down to the market, and then I think, I don't know, like the Saints get tied up on sentimental things. So like,
I agree.
Chris
Yeah,
Olave
yeah,
saying that
no,
he
I
wanted
laugh
to
'cause
be
it's
there,
true, yeah.
like that might have been enough to say, "Oh, you want us? We want you too." You know, like I don't know. Like sometimes that's how it operates there, you know. And so so I don't know if they knew which wide receiver they were going to trade. What I do know is that Rashid Shaheed, while he's played the role as a 2 for the Saints, you can't give him 2 money, right? Just the same way as you can't give Chris Olave 1 money, right? Not to count anybody's pockets, but they haven't produced at that level. And when you look across the league, Rashid Shaheed isn't consistent with the other 2s in the league, and Chris Olave isn't consistent with the 1s across the league. So I'm going to be interested to see what Chris Olave gets paid eventually, right? Because I'm imagining that since he's here, he will get paid and he will be here long term.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
But there was no way that you could pay both of them, obviously. And then also maybe the return was good enough for him.
And to counteract that, the Bengals just paid both of their receivers.
Yeah.
That's T. Higgins.
I don't know.
That's T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
They got 2
They
legit
did.
number 1s. Look, we've thought from the beginning that this is a really funky duo too.
Yeah.
You got 2 guys who both sort of have similar skill sets. Sheed's got the elite speed, so you knew there'd be a market for him. Although he's so small and he can't block, I don't know if he can ever really be a 2. He's like a gadget guy, but you've got 2 guys who don't help you in the run game at all. They're not big targets at the goal line. They seem like a mismatched pair. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, anytime that you have a receiver room that's built of 5 different types of the same wide receiver, archetypically, you're probably going to run into some trouble. And that's why the Devon Vele trade at the time that it happened made so much sense, because it was like, oh, well, outside of the amount that they sent for him, but the trade, the move, the acquisition made sense because it was like, oh, finally a wide receiver that brings something different. But when you look at Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, then they went out and they added Trey Palmer, and of course they've continued with Mason Tipton. Archetypically, they all have very similar skill sets. No matter how many times they tell you that, the team will tell you that they don't, they do. And so it's just one of those things where it was like, okay, well, one of those guys was finally going to get moved.
Yeah.
And I think Rashid was the guy that was going to get you the biggest return. Yeah. And I like the return that you got from him or for him, because if you let him go to the market, which was probably going to happen after this season, he was on a contract year, you were at most probably going to get a 4th-round pick in 2027's draft.
Right, and that's if you don't sign free agents yourself, which suddenly you'd have money to do that. You'd have to worry about all that. Now you get the picks right up.
Yeah, bingo. And so now you have them right away, and you can't cancel them out.
And then on Penning, no surprise, right? I mean, he did not figure in the plans next year, right?
Well, it was a surprise because at the trade deadline at 2:58.
Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah,
I was waiting to go anywhere, thinking, okay, here's the final trade coming for the Saints. Maybe we'll get a surprise Chris Olave trade. Yeah. And then the trade came in. It was Penning, and I was only surprised because I was surprised another team was trading for him. I mean, I'm being serious. Of all the players I wrote down, I wrote down 5 players I thought could get traded, and Penning was not on that list.
Who are the other ones?
Pete Werner was at the top of my list. Olave was on the list. Shaheed. Kamara was on the list, but it kind of seemed iffy. So I did not have Penning on that list simply because I thought teams would look at Penning, a person who's changed positions 3 times, whose option was not picked up, and they would say, we'll wait that out. But and on the Saints side, I do think that was good of them to get something for him because, as you said, he was not going to figure into their future plans.
I had 2 offensive linemen on the list of potential players that could be traded, and neither of them were Trevor Penning. I had no thoughts. Cesar Ruiz. Because there was a lot of conversation about him in Seattle. John Benton, who's the former Saints offensive line coach, is in Seattle, and he loves Cesar Ruiz. And then the other one was actually Dylan Radins, because he was kind of buried in that offensive line. He was a better starter, in my opinion, at left guard than Trevor Penning was in his early starts of the season. And so I thought, well, maybe they could get like a future, 6th-round pick in 2027 for Dylan Radins on an 8-game kind of rental, and that's exactly what they got for Trevor Penning, a former first-round pick instead.
You mean Dylan Radunes?
No. Right, Dylan Radunes.
Kellen Moore says Radunes every time.
Which we've learned is the traditional pronunciation of his name.
But not the right one.
But
it's just funny every time he says Radunes. All right.
And if anyone can relate to a traditional pronunciation not being the right one, it's someone in Louisiana.
Yeah,
That happens all the time.
Dylan Rates is a perfect fit.
Yeah.
All right, now I want the boil water advisory from everybody here. And on this boil water advisory, we're about at the halfway point. Kat, you're first because you're our special guest. What has been worse than you thought it would be?
And
We're 1-8.
all-time leader of appearances on the show.
I
too.
love it. I want
And
to stay
all-time
top of
leader,
that list.
all-time leader of coffee cocktail drinkers.
They knew I was coming. For me, it's the run game. You know, last year it was obvious the Saints were a little iffy about keeping Kamara. They did not restructure his contract, which he said he noticed because they restructured everybody's contract. You know, you get all the way to the middle of the season, then they extend him, which you're kind of thinking, okay, if you were iffy about it, why did you extend him? But, you know, you didn't really know how he would perform this year. It's always kind of a toss-up at 30, and you get to this fall, and they can't run the ball at all. Kamara, I do not think, has had more than 40 yards since the Buffalo game. He can't run the ball. No one can run the ball. I know that there's no McCoy, but that really, the struggle has just been so bad. I don't even think I anticipated that. And as I told you before the show, there are a lot of things I thought weren't going to be good, and I didn't think that would be that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I want to take the same answer because last week was week 9?
Yeah.
And that was the first run of 20-plus yards that the Saints had all season. And that came, of course, from quarterback, tight end, Taysom Hill. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, like,
34-year-old Taysom Hill, by the way.
Yes.
And because he broke about 6 tackles to make it happen.
To make it happen. It was a tough 29. And so the run game, but I think, like, the boil water advisory for me is just how not competitive the last 3 weeks
So it's
have
on
been
Kellen
for the
Moore.
Saints. I think so. You know what I mean? Like you have to look at the top to start with Kellen Moore, and I don't know what it is. Like, I understand that this is a rebuilding. We all understand that this is a rebuilding year. They're going to go through growing pains. But through those first 5 games, the only game that was uncompetitive was Seattle, and it really got out of hand, especially with like special teams and things of that nature. The way that they've been beat, like that Chicago game, it was a 12-point game. That score does not indicate how much they were dominated that day by the Bears. And honestly, they've been dominated every day, every game since then. The defense played decent against the Bucs offense, but the Saints offense, was atrocious that day, and that's when the quarterback change happened. So for me, that's the boil water advisory.
You want me to go or you want to go?
You go for it.
Okay, well, look, mine is, and you said it about wide receivers. There were positions we knew that the Saints didn't address the last offseason. Couldn't rebuild the whole roster. You had the 31st youngest team in the NFL last year. But the positions they did invest in were offensive line, and maybe they didn't invest a lot, but you could see the turnover in the secondary. You mentioned the running game. The offensive line, the one spot you did put resources into, has grossly underperformed. And the secondary, with the young pieces that you were really counting on, has underperformed so far. Again, the wide receiver room being poor, we knew that before the season. They didn't have the money or the resources to fix the wide receiver room. So the fact that the wide receiver room has been poor, I'm okay with that, just because we knew that. But the 2 spots they have invested in are both underperforming.
Yeah.
To me, that's like I don't even know if we fixed that yet. The 2 things you hoped you had fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that stands out most for me is their inability to get anything going to start a game or to start a half. Those are scripted moments. Those are moments that you plan, you practice, and you work through, and they have not been able to get anything going. And the best version of the offense that we see more consistently than anything else is a 2-minute drill at the end of the game or the end of a half.
Yeah.
And if you're in a situation to where the best thing that you can do is improvise, that's a little scary, right?
Yeah.
Like that boils my water. That advises my boil. You know what I mean? Like that is something that I think is a little bit of a concern, or really a lot of bit of a concern. And so I think that's something that I'll highlight.
Yeah, that's super interesting. All right, we got about 2 minutes in this segment, but I do want to get the 2 of you use opinions.
You guys.
Yeah, on Tyler Shough's debut. Well, Catherine, you go first. What did you think? What did you think about Tyler Shough's debut? Good, bad, ugly, incomplete?
I keep saying this, but I called it an incomplete. I said that after the game. I just felt like it was hard to get a full evaluation when I believe they had 3 possessions in the entire second half. And you can look at the first half, and as someone said, okay, why didn't they have a lot of possessions? It's because they went 3 and out a lot.
Sure.
But, then I thought he got some confidence with that 2-minute drive. He threw a touchdown. We were all kind of waiting to see, can you build off that? Then the Rams have the ball for 10 minutes. They just don't. There's turnovers. He doesn't have the ball a lot. So I want to see next game if he built off of that, and if he's going to trend upwards, or if they're just kind of stay in one place.
And that gap in the third quarter was not his fault. That was Alvin Kamara's fumble, bookended by 2 enormous drives.
Right.
Then the game was over.
57 minutes of real time with 1 pass.
They had the ball for 16 minutes. 16 minutes and 7 seconds.
Yeah.
That is a franchise record low.
Oh,
Terrible.
40 plays,
40 plays.
Wow. To me, I think we talked about it.
Yeah,
It's like
and
a
I
C
said this a
minus.
minute ago, yeah.
it was, to me, it was about a C minus.
Yeah.
I think the thing that was encouraging was the amount of explosive plays that he was able to create through the air, right? Like having 3 explosive plays, and then obviously that run came from Taysom Hill, but like them having 4 explosive plays in a game is like, oh.
No, hey, watch out now. Watch out now.
Oh, watch out now. Fill my cup.
Whoa. And those are big explosives.
What's in that glass?
That's not the plus 40 explosives.
plus 40
That's just the plus 20
Oh,
explosives.
yeah.
The mini
That's the plus
explosives.
20. That's the plus 20.
Oh, the green tee shots was
Yeah,
hitting that night.
right.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
No, the 20 yards are like fireball shots.
No, for sure. Like
That's
in
the
the
flaming
little bottle.
Dr. Peppers. That's the
Yeah,
flaming Dr. Peppers.
yeah,
The
yeah.
40.
I like you
Alcohol
staying on theme here.
Yeah, those are like 40 proof. Yeah, they're not big hitters.
Yeah, we found our group. We found our comfort zone here.
Yeah.
This is our conversation.
Yes, with alcohol references. And speaking of which,
Yes.
you know what time it is?
And welcome into the last call. This is probably our favorite segment of the show, and always
Probably.
our final
It's
segment
my
of the
favorite
show.
segment.
Probably.
Yes, it's
Definitely.
everyone's favorite segment of the show. It's your favorite segment of the show. We thank you very much. So this is a segment where we have a drink and give a think. So we'll go through kind of our final thoughts for the show while we're making a cocktail here. And Doug, what you got for us?
And here is our last call. Yes, we're going to make another coffee drink.
Yes.
Kat loves coffee. You love coffee. Seth does not. So we're forcing him to drink what he doesn't love, but you know what, it is what it is. All right, this is a local vodka. So we use 2 ounces of the vodka, and then this is the world's greatest coffee liqueur. It's Mr. Black. It's an Australian coffee liqueur. It's a half ounce
So
of that. This is a maple simple syrup. I made it a little thicker. It's a thinner than maple syrup because that's so hard to work with.
Yeah, you didn't see that on camera, but when he said thicker, he winked at me. That was very nice.
Wow,
very
that's
nice.
a half
It made you feel
ounce.
good, I know.
And then this is an espresso grade coffee. One of the cold brews that I make to espresso strength, and an ounce of that. We're gonna mix it all together, whip it up.
Love it.
Yes.
So then to start us off, while you're taking care of all that, let's get to our last call thoughts. And Kat, why don't you lead us off?
All right, obviously today was a trade deadline, and for me, this is the start. They did some good things during the trade deadline. They need to do more. Obviously, we're not going to see more trades for a while, but I'm going to bounce off what Seth said and say when 2026 comes, they need to be unemotional. They need to basically do a reset, get rid of some of the older players, basically just not be emotional. I keep repeating that, but I think it's been a problem for them in the past. I think they need to look at this with a different eye and move forward with their younger players. And so hopefully this is the start. We'll kind of see if they finish it or if they kind of keep doing the same things they've been doing the last few years that got them to this place.
Yeah, I think it's a great call. I mean, there's so much young talent all of a sudden on this team, and the more opportunities that they get, this is impressive. The more opportunities that they
It's
get.
thicker than I thought.
Yeah, you breathing hard like it's thick.
Glad I wasn't looking at you whenever I was trying to talk.
Man,
Okay. That's so good. But yeah, they got a lot of young talent all of a sudden on this team, and so they're they can maximize their opportunities to get a look at that and add more. I think that makes a lot of sense. Seth, what are you looking at for your last call today?
So it's funny, I think back to like a year ago, essentially this time, it was the Saints visiting the Panthers, right?
Yep.
They were on a 6-game losing streak. They made it 7. That's the game that cost DA. And I think Colin Saunders called it the Cottonelle Doodoo Bowl.
Cottonelle Doodoo Bowl, baby. Yeah.
And we just lost the Cottonelle Doodoo Bowl. So as I
Yeah.
reflect on that, obviously the Saints, that game kind of sent them into a full rebuild.
Yeah.
That game is also the game that Carolina turned it around.
Oh,
They have
yeah.
a winning
Right,
record
right.
now.
Yeah.
And so they return to the scene of the toilet.
Yeah.
But it's only one team. It's only one team that's bad in this scenario. Carolina has turned it around, at least for now, and that is where the Saints want to be as far as like trying to get their rebuild in the right direction. Yeah. It all starts typically with your quarterback, and Bryce Young has played pretty decent for the Panthers this year.
Pretty well.
Beautiful metaphor that was.
Really good.
Oh,
it was very, very nice.
Beautiful.
Cottonelle Doo-Doo Bowl. Return to the toilet. The Saints have also only won one of their last 4 games in Charlotte, by the way. And so it has been a challenging situation.
And those games have been
anytime
bad,
they go
too.
there, and those have been very, very bad.
I think I
games,
blocked
for sure.
all of those games out of my
did.
memory,
Yeah,
except
that's
for
it.
last year.
Yeah, that's the Charlotte experience. Just block it out as you leave.
You can get barbecue in Charlotte.
You can.
I plan to. I'll be in Charlotte this weekend.
That's good.
plan to
I'm gonna watch the LSU and Alabama game in Charlotte.
With barbecue.
Yeah,
With barbecue.
That'll be great.
I accidentally overfilled that one a
That's
little bit,
all
so
right.
that
Give
was
that one a
Cat's.
cat. Yep.
Yeah, and
Thank
this
you.
one's slightly underfilled. That one Seth's.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. That
You
makes
want me to
sense.
go or you want to go?
No, let's do the drinks first.
Let's do the
since we
drinks
have it.
first. All right, who are we toasting?
Shall we toast to new beginnings?
To new
there
beginnings.
you go.
Oh, yeah.
Both
Please.
here,
Oh,
both,
yes.
both
Please.
here and hopeful new beginnings.
Yes.
There you go. Oh yeah.
That's great.
I love that drink. It's very coffee forward, which might not be good for you, but that's a good
That's
drink.
cool. Yeah.
Yes.
I love this.
I'm not a great bartender. Look at this shake. It's not super successful. That's why I use the
Cottonelle
towel.
Doodle Bowl.
There we go.
All right.
Excellent.
All right, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go.
Okay.
That way you can enjoy more of your drink. I
Oh,
already had
yeah.
2 sips of mine. Look, mine's already
Oh,
almost,
wow, I like
almost
that.
gone. I love this drink. All right, so, you know what? You asked me if I was going to tell you whether or not it was better than the Cartajillo. I think the Cartajillo is better.
I think the Cartajillo is better,
Yeah,
too.
but I do like this a lot.
From 2 weeks ago.
Yes. All right. So for my last call, I think the biggest thing that I'll highlight here is that the New Orleans Saints have done a very good job of ridding themselves of the previous regime, and they continued that with these moves on the trade deadline. They took a first-round pick from the former regime and they traded him away for something, and then it was a 2027 6th-round pick. I don't know what you're going to call that.
Who cares? It's
they
something.
traded away for a thing, and then of course, even with the move of Rashid Shaheed, Rashid Shaheed was a big-time staple going all the way back to the beginning of Dennis Allen's time, and even towards the end previous. And so I think that for New Orleans, like this is a continuation of what it is that they started in the offseason when they didn't re-sign Pete Werner, when they didn't bring back Marcus Davenport, when they didn't bring back all those other pieces. They traded away Colin Saunders and all that. This is a continuation of that work. So pretty similar to what you were discussing in terms of the connection of making further decisions, moving away from older players. They're doing it already with some of the young vets, which I think gives a little bit of a hopeful optimism that they'll do exactly what it is that you're calling for.
And honestly, the Saunders trade was a great trade for
It
the
was.
Saints.
It worked.
Saunders has played one game
Right.
and it's been a healthy scratch. So that was a really great trade. So I give them props for that.
100%.
All right, mine is, look, everything around this team is so negative right now that I tend to lean positive. What's the one thing I can say that Kellen Moore has done right? Because there's major questions about his motivational abilities. The one thing he has done right is how he has managed Tyler Shough to this point. He was saying all along, I'm just playing to win this game. I'm just playing to win this game. But what he was actually doing was giving Tyler Shough his best opportunity for success. He sat and watched for 8 games when clearly if he had played earlier, based on what we saw early in training camp, he was not ready.
Right.
He gave him 8 games to get ready. A lot of the harder games of the season against the playoff teams, he didn't play. Now he's got a full 9-game window where he had time. I'm not saying Tyler Shough's going to be successful and be the franchise quarterback. I'm just saying he played the Tyler Shough experiment perfectly to give Shough his best chance at success.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you're still looking for him to be an exception, right? I mean, there's only really 3 viable starters that have come out of non-first-round pick quarterbacks since 2015.
Jalen Hurts was a
2016.
2.
Yep, Jalen Hurts was a 2.
Dak.
Dak was a 4. And then Brock Purdy was a 7. And Brock Purdy has not touched the field at all yet this season, of course. But outside of all that, he
but
is
Derek
still
Carr was a
viable.
2.
He was much further. He was drafted before 2015.
More like 2005.
And that era is over. If that's not a positive.
Yeah, you're right. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, ain't that the
if
truth.
nothing else, that's no longer the way that this all goes.
All right, we got 30 seconds left. Do the Saints win? Do the Saints win Sunday?
I'm going to say no.
No. Kat?
No.
No.
Yeah, I'm going to say no as well.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I consider myself a little bit of a homer, but that's just ridiculous.
During the Giants game, I think we all said yes.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
they
no, we
won.
did.
We did.
We did.
You know, we're
and we were all correct.
We're
All right,
realistic.
guys, thank you.
Cheersies.
Ross, take
Thanks,
us out.
everybody. All right, everybody, thank you very much for being here with us. We'll see you next time here on the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.